Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much. I think we all understand that Cuba is not going to change overnight. We're at the beginning of a process to change the dynamic between the two countries, but also to change the dynamic between the United States and Latin America in general. And Cuba has historically been a centerpiece, a reference point that has been used by Latin America in our discussions on many issues. There is no question about that. Back in the 1980s, as the chairman of telecommunications in the House of Representatives, I worked extensively on the issue of radio Markey and TV Markey. That is, a recognition of the role that communications plays in opening the minds of Cubans to a world that was outside of their boundaries. And it was a central part of foreign and diplomatic policy in the United States. What heartens me in the new announcement is this initiative that can deal with greater access to telecommunications for the people of Cuba. Right now, there is only one fiber optic cable coming into Cuba. In the Dominican Republic, a country with almost the same population, they have 5 fiber optic cables coming in. So this whole issue of an increase in consumer communications devices, software, applications, hardware, updating communications and internet services is something that could play a big role in giving information to the ordinary Cuban citizen that right now is not available to them. For example, it's $5 an hour in internet cafes in Havana right now for the use of the internet, and when the average income in Cuba is only $20 a month, that doesn't lend itself to the use by ordinary Cubans. So could you talk a little bit about that and what your hopes are for expanded telecommunications policy in Cuba in terms of the impact that it can have upon that country's people?
Certainly, Senator. And I think that this is, and really can be, and I don't know whether it will have the impact we all want. I know that Senators Rubio, the chairman, and Senator Menendez and I have talked a lot about trying to get more information into Cuba. It's been one of the things we've wanted most. You know, it allows telecommunications companies for the first time to make commercial sales of things like communications devices, whether that's cell phones or, you know, iPads or other forms of equipment, not just to donate them, but to make those sales. They can also sell, and I don't want to get myself too far into this because I'll get into Commerce or Treasury's regulations and get them wrong, but they also are able to sell, you know, other internet-related items to improve the free flow of information without a license, without a specific license, under general license. Without a license from the Commerce Department. They're also allowed to consolidate gift parcels. They're allowed to sell, you know, all sorts of things that the private sector can sell in terms of equipment in hardware that were not allowed before, telecommunications hardware. Now, the Cuban government, including Raul Castro, have said they want telecommunications equipment. They want to upgrade their infrastructure in telecommunications. They know that they need that in order for their economic modernization. I don't know whether they really mean that. That's the point of these regulations, is that we believe that they need that to offer more access to their people. We want to push them on that. They need it for their economic modernization. They need it for you know, to get economic progress. With that, we believe will come an opening of information to more people, even if they are not intending that. And if they resist that, we want to be in the forefront of having made that offer aggressively. Now, telecommunications firms are just looking at this, and we've been in touch with quite a few. There are some that are already visited, and many more that are now interested as this plays out. So we're optimistic about the interest, but not necessarily yet about how the Cuban government will respond.
And I appreciate that. But I think because we're so close to them, because there are economic synergies that could be created from a telecommunications perspective between our two countries, understanding that it is a threat to an authoritarian regime, you still have this other component where there's a natural yearning, especially amongst young people, no matter where they are in the world, to have greater access to this modern technology. You know, Americans did not have these devices in their pockets going into 1995. But in Africa in 2001, only 12 million people had cell phones. Today in Africa, 1 billion people have cell phones. And so you can see how a huge paradigm shift can occur in a very brief period of time with access to these technologies, and with the change in the access to technologies changes the relationship between the people and the government,
and the
notwithstanding
state,
their
right.
attempts to completely control the people in the way they
And
had
we've seen that
historically.
in cell phone, even though internet penetration is very low, cell phone use has grown enormously and potentially could grow even more as an information tool.
So I think that trying to engage on that one issue gives us an opportunity to really make a difference. And I would I would add energy as well. There is, I understand, a huge effort to move to wind and solar in Cuba at a very significant level, which would further reduce their need for imports of oil from other countries that then kind of tie them into agendas in other countries as well. And I know I'm running out of time, but I do think that ultimately the more that we engage them at the economic level, it tends to then change the country in ways that were unanticipatable by the political leaders of that country. I thank you so much.